I want to talk about two things today, and I hope I'm not long-winded, but I do have a lot to say. When you talk about Mississippi Economic Council, obviously you assume that has to do with economic development. What are some things that make us economically prosperous? One of those things is education. And I am proud to say that over the last 5 years, since Republicans have been in control, we have worked very hard to improve educational accomplishments, educational achievements. And I asked my staff to put together a list of some of the things, and I was a little taken aback even when I saw the list of things. Over the last 5 years, we passed the third grade reading gate, which they say has had the most impact on education of any policy that has been passed in recent memory. We've changed the grading system for schools so that parents can know whether their district is an A, a B, a C, a D, or an F. We passed the Early Learning Collaborative, Dyslexia Therapy Scholarship, Speech Language Therapy Scholarship, charter schools, special needs ESA, Teacher Pay Raise Act, which Scott mentioned. We've increased the funding of the Teacher Supply Fund, moved to appointed superintendents, increased funding to a level that is historically the highest in the history of our state last year. The list goes on and on. I think it can be said we've made a commitment to improving education, and we're doing more. As you know, this year we're exploring a rewrite of the formula. Why? Because we want to make sure the money gets to the students. We want to make sure the money reaches the intended destination, and that is putting money in the classroom so that our students can achieve even more. We put $50 million into workforce development for our community colleges in an attempt to train people, prepare them for jobs. So I want it to be clear, we've made a commitment. We feel very proud of this list of accomplishments. We think we're doing a good job of moving this state towards a better educational system so that we can prepare that workforce and people can be prepared to enter the workforce and our state can experience economic prosperity. The second thing I want to talk about today is what has been stated as the number one issue of this organization this year, and that's infrastructure. That's roads and bridges. And I want to talk about that for just a few minutes. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that, a lot of concern about that. There's a lot of talk in the halls about that. I saw a quote in the paper recently by one of the lobbyists who said that one of the problems with this is there's been no leadership from the governor or the lieutenant governor or the speaker on this issue. I know it's true because it was in the paper. But that was the quote. I'm going to be really transparent about this. Those of you who know me know that I like to shuck the corn. I don't like to play games. So I'm going to be transparent with you here today. This is a difficult issue, and finding a solution is a difficult problem. I see a number of questions that need to be answered when we talk about this issue. First of all, what is the need? What is the extent of the need? I've seen a lot of studies that show the number of bridges and roads that need to be repaired. We need to come to some agreement and find out what the extent of that need is. We've got to ask ourselves, is there enough money within existing revenues to meet that need? Can we find further efficiencies in MDOT? Can we find further efficiencies in state government to take money and put over there? Then, once you establish what that need is, you got to ask yourselves, what are the solutions that are available? There are a number of solutions. We can appropriate more money. We can raise a tax. We can bond. The federal government has said they want to put more money, or I say the federal government. Donald Trump, president-elect, has said he wants to make that one of his number one issues. I hope we see some revenue come in from the federal government. But these are all questions that exist. Now, the only solutions that I've been presented with, even by this organization, involve taxes and fees. I don't know how many of you know this, but you need to understand that in the House of Representatives, to pass any bill that involves a tax or a fee requires 74 votes. It's not a simple majority. It is what we call a supermajority. And no one who has presented me with a plan has come to me and said, I got 74 votes for my plan. So you can see the difficulty that exists here in reaching a solution for this issue. Now, the people of this state have elected conservatives, and they have continued to elect conservatives with every election cycle. 1988, I think my number's right, out of 122 members in the House of Representatives, there were 6 Republicans. Today, there's 74. With each election cycle, there's been a continuous march toward conservative government, toward conservative leadership. And the people of the state have continued to elect those. Actually, we've seen those numbers increase with every election. And these are legislators that many of you, if not most of you, have supported. These are legislators who have campaigned upon smaller government. They have stood for lower taxes. They have stood for creating a business-friendly environment. They have reduced tax burdens. Last year we reduced the franchise tax. There was great praise about that. Many of you have supported such measures. You have supported that. We have lived within our means. We have $300 million in the bank. Our sister states are running deficits. We've had very conservative leadership over the last 5 years to keep ourselves within our means, to reduce debt, and to stay conservative. And all of these are things that you have supported. And all of these are things that have led to economic prosperity. We have stood in the gap on tort reform. We have stood and made sure that the tort reform we passed 10 years ago has stayed strong, which has again created a strong business environment. So when the only plans that we get involve taxes and fees, you can see what a difficult lift that is. You can see how it's difficult to get a coalition together to vote for things like that. I'm going to give you an example of my district. I met recently with some constituents of mine. They presented me with their list of budget items for the year. Not budget items, agenda items for the year. Improvements in education, improvements in infrastructure, workforce development. There were 27 things they wanted. I counted them. All right, I'll go up there and champion 27 things. And the last thing they said to me was, we want all this done, but don't raise a tax. We don't want you raising taxes. You see the difficulty that exists. So let me be clear on where I'm at on this. I'm here to tell you that I'm personally engaging on this issue. It will never be said that Philip Gunn did not take this issue seriously. Within the last week, I have met with opponents to doing anything about roads and bridges. I have met with proponents about doing things for roads and bridges. I have met with MDOT on multiple occasions, and I'm searching for efficiencies within that organization. I've asked them to find $50 million in savings. Haven't seen that yet. Hopefully I will get that. They have presented me with their budget, how they spend their dollars. I'm pouring through that. I've got members pouring through that, trying to find efficiencies with MDOT. I've met with the Truckers Association. I have met with Mr. Joe Sanderson, who is one of the vocal proponents of this organization. I have met with the leaders of your organization. I have met with a meeting with the truckers. I met with the truckers yesterday. I see Hal back there. I'm meeting with the road builders after this. I'm going to meet with the petroleum marketers. I'm meeting with everybody who is expressed or is affected by this issue. And I'm going to personally engage on this. I am personally going to step out and I'm going to search for a solution. Don't know what that solution is yet, but we're looking. And I'm here today to tell you that it will not be said that Philip Gunn did not work on this issue. I'm going to make sure that we explore every option and every opportunity, and we're going to do the best we can to find a way to meet the issue about roads and bridges. And if we can't do it this year, we're going to keep working until we are able to do that in the years to come. But I want you to know that we're going to do everything on our end that we can to make sure that we find this solution. I'm going to make calls to Senator Cochran and Senator Wicker to see what help we can get from the federal government. I'm going to engage on this issue, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm not just going to give you lip service. I'm not making any promises to you other than Philip Gunn will engage on trying to find a solution to this problem. Thank you so much for letting me be with you here today.
You are the fuel that powers the engine that drives the state of Mississippi, that economic engine, and we appreciate what you do, the jobs that you provide, the services you provide, and the dignity in which you do that, and the ability to make policy decisions that help us make good policy decisions. You're the fuel for the engine that drives the state, but it's up to the legislature to decide if it's in reverse or forward. We want to make sure we go forward. We're going to make sure that this is in drive and that your energy is not expended uselessly. Thank you so much for what you do. Now, we have a big session coming up. We are in the first couple of days of the session. We're still requesting bills to be written and drafted, and we will introduce those before the deadline reaches us. Sometime next week, I think, is the deadline for requesting bills, and then the deadline for introducing is about 7 days later. Once we get those bills introduced and committees start acting on those bills in earnest, we'll spend a couple of weeks in committee work, 10 days or so, then we'll be on the floor handling those bills, and then we'll swap into the Capitol with those bills. The House will get our bills, we'll get the House bills, and the process starts all over. By the end of March, we should have a lot of decisions made as far as appropriations are concerned, and then general bills deadline before April 2nd, sine die. That's the schedule, and we know that you'll be interested in some of these pieces of legislation. You as an individual or as a group have ideas that we need to hear to give us the knowledge that we need to make the decisions that are right for the people of Mississippi. Somebody said something earlier, nobody knows everything. Nobody. And so we are open to your suggestions, we're open to your opinions, and we're open to this discussion on any topic of any matter that you might have on your mind as a group or as an individual. I think education is going to be an issue this year from the standpoint of deciding the formula, direction on the formula. We don't have any idea what the Ed Build recommendation is going to be, but we do think that we will have a good objective look at the education formula and see what we can do to make sure that more money gets into the classroom, which is what we all ought to be about. So we'll be doing that. We also will be working on, hopefully, trying to wait and see is probably one of the things we'll have to do on some issues. The president-elect has made the comment that infrastructure is important to him. We need to see exactly what that Washington answer is going to be, what their recommendations are going to be as far as infrastructure is concerned, how much is the state going to put in, and how much is the feds going to put in, all of those things. So we need to have those discussions before we can make final decisions, but we can't, in my opinion, let another session go by without trying to do something about our infrastructure. The other thing that we, I think, will be working on diligently is trying to get a handle on the Medicaid budget. The Medicaid budget grows and grows and grows. It's over $1 billion state money, and the feds match us 3 to 1. For every dollar we put in from the state, $1 billion, general funds, the state gives us 3. If we go to block grants, there's some discussion on whether or not that match would be there, whether or not we would get the same amount of money from the Fed. So we may have to make some changes and so forth. We just don't know what Washington is going to do. So that's another one. I think we have to take action on some of those issues, but have a more of a wait and see attitude on Medicaid as well, to determine whether or not we're going to be able to continue to have the program we have, whether we have a changed program, a new improved world-class program, or similar to what we have now, which is the bare minimum. We have one of the lowest reimbursement rates of any state in the country. We don't reimburse doctors and hospitals and others as much as some do. So we can have some type of improvement there to keep our healthcare system viable for everybody. So we are going to be faced with those decisions. We appreciate your support. We ask for your prayers, your suggestions, your comments, and don't let us run out of gas. Keep fueling us, keep us going, and keep us on the straight and narrow as we try to make the right decisions for the people of Mississippi and everything that we do, not only here, but out there in our regular lives too. Thank you all so very much.
Let me start by giving thanks to MEC, Mississippi Economic Council, for your leadership in the business community in working with us here at the state capitol in trying to bring a solution to this major crisis that we have in front of us. Let me also give thanks to my colleagues, the Lieutenant Governor, who is considered to be my boss, who appointed me or reappointed me to the position as Chairman of Highways and Transportation, and to my colleagues across the hallway. I agree with what the speaker said, as well as my cohort, Chairman Busby. We are committed to working towards resolving this problem. I have heard none of them say to me at any given time that we don't recognize that there's a problem and we need to correct it. We just have kind of a different approach sometimes for communicating and how we do it. And I've probably been one of the ones who've been a little bit more vocal on we got to do something. And I guess that comes with the fact that, as Scott indicated, I have been working on it now as chairman for some 6 years, and then as chairman of the Appropriation Committee on Transportation in the Senate, looking at it for another 2 years. So for many, many years now, we have been looking at the situation, and we recognize many years ago that we had a problem in dealing with an antiquated funding system that we have in place. If you think about your body, your body grows and it ages as you grow. In doing that, your body have a tendency to need services. And what we do with our body is we find doctors and specialists who we go to maintain our health. We go to those specialists and those doctors, and we either have insurance or we have dollars that we pull out of our pocket. But we figure out a way to pay those specialists and those doctors to take care of us and maintain us so that our lives will be extended. But with our infrastructure system, our transportation infrastructure system, we have decided to treat it a little different. We do monies, we put small amount of monies in it each year, but when we did the 87 highway program, and I wasn't here, but the individuals who came here before us, in 1987, they put together an infrastructure system, and they came with a funding formula to say that they wanted to build a 4-lane highway within 50 miles of every residence within the state of Mississippi. And they put enough money in place to do that. The challenge that we have today is that they did not put any insurance in. They did not give us a lottery that we could go and win and build it or maintain it. They did not tell us we could go and win a jackpot and take care of it. They said that we're going to give you the money and we're going to build it, and then we got to maintain it and do that. Well, as we have seen, we now have some 16,000 bridges, just as an example, in the state of Mississippi. And of those 16,000 bridges, about 22% of them have been posted and they are deficient. What that means is that we have a problem with those bridges, and as those bridges deteriorate, it creates a safety measure as well as it creates a problem for our commerce to be moved to and from. We have a situation now where we're into the bicentennial, and we are encouraging individuals by the busload, by the van load to come into Mississippi. We've done a good job with economic development in the tourism area and heritage. We have put up what we call trail markers. And those trail markers are all over the place, just like our businesses are. They own, many cases, they own roads that have these deficient bridges. And many of those buses are coming in during this bicentennial will probably have to cross some of those bridges to get to some of those markers. We are jeopardizing those tourists. We're jeopardizing our school children. We're jeopardizing those businesses that are across those bridges when companies have to go around and trying to deliver the products and goods to them, causing those bridges to go, those costs to go up. Well, with that, I think in my getting ready to sit down is we need to think about it in this manner. We need to look at it from the point of view that President Ronald Reagan did in 1982. President Ronald Reagan came in, and when he did his State of the Union message, he basically said to we the citizens, I am not going to raise your taxes. I am not going to raise your fees. I'm going to maintain government, and I'm going to downsize government. And that's a good approach. And I want to applaud the leadership, both the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker, and those who work with the budget. I want to applaud them for having looked at government and figured out some ways to improve government's operation while at the same time saving dollars. But I want to be like President Reagan. I want to look at the situation and understand that if we are going to have the ability to move our commerce, if we're going to have the ability to make sure that our bridges and roads are safe, then we have to invest in them. And what President Reagan did was he looked at, after saying that he wasn't going to raise taxes, he looked at the user fee, and he came to the conclusion that it was only 4 cents a gallon. But in order to have safe highways and do the things that we need to do to move the goods, he decided that he was going to go against what he had said and said he was not going to raise taxes, and he raised it by 125%, and it went from 4 cents a gallon to 9 cents, and we did well. Our fathers ahead of us in Mississippi in 1987 did basically the same kind of thing. So we really cannot afford to kick the can down the road. Now, if I was to do a survey with you in here to take you back to what the speaker said, that you need to give us the assurances that it's not just us, because the individuals that I've just called their name, Busby, the speaker, the lieutenant governor, all of us are supportive and we want to do things. But if I would ask you the question, all of you who have talked to each of your legislators and each of your supervisors and each of your mayors, because it has to come from the local government as well as the state and the federal, have you talked to those individuals and told them that you wanted to see more money and you wanted to see fees and taxes or whatever increase? If I would ask you that question, probably I would see very few hands that go up to say that you have talked to them. That's the problem. It's not us. We are responsible for making sure that we voted in, but we need you. We need you to communicate to each of us and let us know, because raising taxes and fees is very difficult. And the closer we get to an election, a little bit more difficult it gets, because we are concerned about how you're going to react to it. You must communicate to each of us in this capital. You must communicate to your board of supervisors, because they need some skin in the game also. You must communicate to municipal league and say to all of us, we understand what Ronald Reagan said and did, that it's important that we have an infrastructure system capable of delivering our commerce and going to keep us safe. That's what we must do. So my challenge to you is, we appreciate your coming to the Capitol today. We want you to continue to come and do the business that you're doing, but we want you to talk to us and let us know that this is something that you want done. Go back to the counties and tell the board of supervisors. Go back to the cities and tell the mayors and the municipal folks. Tell the superintendent of education, you can't afford to have 22% of the bridges that these buses are crossing. So tell us. And I think when you do that, we'll see a difference in the attitude about making it happen. Because again, if you say you don't want your taxes raised, and if everybody in the community is saying you don't want your taxes raised, it's going to be very difficult for me to vote to raise the taxes. But we know, again, we can't win a jackpot. We can't win a lottery and pay for roads and bridges. And if we cut Department of Transportation in half, I'm not sure that we will have enough money if we need $350 to $400 million a year to take care of it. So we got to look at new ways of taking care of it. We have not raised our fees since 1987. And the last thing I will say to you, in 1987, if gasoline at that particular time was 79 cents a gallon, we collect the same amount of money today that we was collecting when it was 79 cents. So it doesn't matter. If gasoline goes up to $5 a gallon, based on what we are doing right now at the 18 cents, we're going to collect the same amount. When you know and I know that in 1987, when you pull up to a service station attendant put gas in your tank, your water was free and your air was free. Today, if you pull up to a service station, you put the gas in your tank, you pay for your water, and you pay for the air. We have not changed the situation with the gas. And that's a challenge that we have to have. So again, I want to thank Mississippi Economic Council for all your support, and I encourage you not to just assume that we know what to do. Tell us to increase fees or increase taxes or find new money to take care of our businesses and our children and our tourists and all other individuals who are going to travel our highways and byways. Thank you.
I think we make a pretty good team. I think what you guys do in the state as our leaders, our business leaders, and what this legislature has accomplished together over the last 5 years, as Philip spoke about, is phenomenal. It's amazing. I'm proud to be on your team. I'm proud of the education reforms, workers' comp reform, the things that we're moving on in Mississippi, living within our means, as Philip mentioned, such big things. We got more to do, and I owe you a great debt of gratitude for taking the leadership on looking at our infrastructure needs. By being the first ones out on that limb, you have done that. Mr. Sanderson and his team have done an amazing job. And let me tell you what you've done. You have pulled back the veil, you have pulled back the curtain as what I see being a financial hole that our state is headed into that we will never be able to dig ourselves out of if we don't address this issue sooner rather than later. There's no way that we can say that it makes any sense whatsoever for a state agency to operate in 2017 on the same dollars that it operated on in 1987. That's mad. That's simply mad thinking. Now, we'll say that fuel consumption has gone up over that period of time, and it has. Fuel consumption has gone up 30% over that period of time. So revenues have gone up 30% over that period of time, while construction costs have increased 400%. It's mad. We've got to address it. And every day that goes by that we don't address it, our roads degrade to the point that it's going to cost even more money now to fix them. So I appreciate that, and what Philip says is absolutely true. He has engaged, and I appreciate his help. It means so much to me to work with him to try to solve this problem. And I would say that he's probably spending more time on this with me now than any other issue that's before him, and there are many, many, many things before him. So I appreciate his leadership. I appreciate his willingness to engage. But most of all, I appreciate the leadership role that you guys have taken in bringing this problem to the forefront before it becomes something that the state simply cannot overcome. I will assure you that I will be working hard, using what little brain I have to try to find solutions that solve the problem, that are palatable to the citizens of the state of Mississippi, and that are in keeping with the conservative values and philosophies of this body. It's important that we preserve all of those. And I believe that preserving the infrastructure that we have developed, that we've built, is in fact a conservative philosophy. Allowing it to degrade to the point that it's no longer usable to us is not very conservative at all. So again, I won't take much of your time. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm very humbled by that. Thank you for being here, and God bless.